And please help me give a proper Youngstown warm welcome to Robert Tinnell.
Thank you.
That's proudly somewhat sponsored by the Briar Pills here from Nova Priest.
This was my fee for coming tonight.
Hate and beer. So, before I turn this over to the audience, I have a few questions to ask you. 7, exactly. All right, 7, yes. And this is December 7th. And I'd be remiss to not say bon compliment to Gabriel Krish. He's my brother from another mother. He's amazing. So I really want to say happy birthday. And by the way, I'm giving you the first audience questions, so you better think. You got like 7 questions, all right? It's all right, so you said that the assimilation phenomenon, make this a little easier, was a big motivator for you, and that you wanted to create a snapshot of life while not disappearing entirely, and it's rapidly morphing to something else. In what ways has it changed, or perhaps not changed, or morphed for you?
First of all, I got to say that I about choked back there drinking water right before I came up, so I probably sound like a crazy person. Full disclosure, I'd like to tell you there was some linear way that I decided to do this or to interpret it, or, we talked about this a lot when you came down to see me. When I had the idea for the movie, I didn't quite have the context to really appreciate what I was experiencing, as a truly Heinz 57, American melting pot guy whose roots go to Ellis Island and to Jamestown, which is weird. And I had imposter syndrome. I didn't even know that was a phrase. I felt like I was a fake Italian. I didn't understand. There was no way to really kind of organize the way I was feeling about this. And I was really scared as I was doing it. Unfortunately, my wife ended up in graduate school as a historian, and I learned a whole bunch of stuff that I didn't know about why we are the way we are. And all of this was complicated by the fact that people like my great-grandparents, my grandparents, they wanted you to be a good American, not, the only thing I could do in Italian was cuss, pretty much. And with the bad Calabrian dialect that we have, it probably didn't even sound Italian. And so this was a process. And, after I had done the book and had some success with it, but before I got to do the movie, at one point I saw a thing that Scorsese did called MVHS d'Italia, about his childhood with watching Italian in films that came from Italy in the neo-realist period. And I was stunned to find out that he felt like an imposter. He wasn't permitted, he didn't know Italian, he didn't know everything. There were these walls. And probably one of the reasons the Italian people have been so successful in this country is that they went all in, on being Americans. So I didn't even really understand that what I was doing actually had a deeper meaning. And I just don't want to pretend like I was like, well, what I was really trying to do, because the truth is this has been a journey, and a lot of it I've come to understand in hindsight. So I was really careful. The only license that I took with this, and I did take a license, and I'm just being honest with you, I never heard it called Feast of the Seven Fishes till I was 27 years old. And I said to my mom once, I said, why do we do this? Because, I always say when you're a kid, you're busy being young, right? I was trying to get a date. I wasn't thinking about, I wonder what the complex socioeconomic meaning is of where we are in the class structure of the United States. Wasn't thinking like that. And my mom said, this Feast of the Seven Fishes. We called it Christmas Eve, to be honest. Not Love Julia, nothing. It was just Christmas Eve. It's just what we did. And I had no idea that our train wreck of a Christmas Eve was actually being replicated by families all over the United States. And newsflash to all our friends in northern Italy, they do this in Italy. They just don't do it up there with U stops. So, that irritates me a little bit. Sorry. Did I answer that?
No, I think you answered a couple of my questions. So
he's had me places drinking all day.
I mean, when you're
all
Youngstown,
day. I'm not lying. All day.
Where was the first place we went to? Remember the name of it?
Oh, the Golden Dawn.
You gotta get a scooter. He does have a St. Anthony's Sparkle pizza in his car, so we have not gotten to that. All right, so in your film, your grandfather's and uncles weren't, preparing the food. Can you please talk about like Christmas, what it was like in quote unquote Merlin's cave, aka your great grandmother Isabella Oliveira's kitchen, which was quote unquote paradise where the magic happened?
Well, again, I got pushbacks occasionally when doing the film, and there were some things I did just because it made more sense, and some things I fought back because they kept saying to me, it would be nice if they wouldn't smoke. No, it wouldn't be nice if they didn't smoke. It would be ridiculous. But what do you want to do for product placement? Coca-Cola and Budweiser. Yeah, that's it. I mean, what product placement? We grew everything. Or it came in big hunks of stuff. I didn't know. But originally, when my great-grandfather died in 1944, my grandmother, I don't know if she got a settlement from the mines. She didn't get very much. And she had like 95 kids. And she bought a house. She kept the one house they owned. She bought another house. She jacked it up, built a basement, covered over the creek that ran through the yard, and made it into paradise. And I don't know how you would get 30, 35 people in this basement with this kind of hand-poured concrete floor with 2 casks around the corner with the wine that she made and a wood-burning stove. And all of this was cooked when I was a child on a wood-burning stove. And I was way too stupid to ask why we were doing things. I asked her other things, like, were there vampires in Italy? And yes, there are. And she told me the reason there are no vampires in America is because all the telephone poles are shaped like crosses. She was awesome.
Makes sense, right? And she wasn't kidding. Like, she had it worked out.
Yeah.
Growing up Italian American, and the only quote unquote representation of family that we saw were like in mob films like The Godfather, Goodfellas. I think, mostly set in New York. I think the one that kind of comes the closest would be Bronx Tale, which came later, which actually shows working class families, which to me was, I don't know, kind of a breakthrough. And honestly, probably sacrilege in some circles, but I like those better than the last 2 films that I described. Youngstown has a well-documented, infamous record of past mob activity. In a film that I did, and there's some cast and crew members in the audience called Fine Tune, which was shot in Youngstown and set in Youngstown. And I was attempting to kind of show your average working-class Italian-American family while very limitedly kind of poking fun at, mob stereotypes, but not directly focusing on it, kind of like, what you do in Montreal? It's great. No, what are you doing? Business. I like how subtle it was, And I really see some like strong parallels between our characters, our films, and I feel like I know the people in my family, and I applaud you for that representation of Appalachian working-class Italian-American families, which are rarely seen and often get overshadowed by these East Coast representations of Italians, or what it's supposed to be, what you're supposed to be like to be Italian, what the real, level of bar is. And I said, can you talk a little bit of the lack of representation and how our shared Italian diasporic experience, so to speak, is important to you personally?
Well, in a bigger picture sense, I certainly have a, not just an Italian thing, I have a sort of deep resentment for the way that West Virginia is portrayed. I don't know how to break this to you, but we have indoor plumbing. This isn't the only pair of shoes I own, and I cannot play the banjo. I was never down where the Hatfields and McCoys were until I was over 50. My wife and I can throw a rock and hit 2 gourmet wine shops and a sushi bar. West Virginia is a very complex place. It may actually be further north than Youngstown or close in places. So I resent that. And, I resent the general reductionism of American culture anyway. But I particularly, as an Italian American, resent these sort of one-note things. And look, I'm not going to go back and pretend like, I had some horrific upbringing, or listen, I've been a very privileged person. But at the same time, periodically, like most people, I experienced cultural reductionism where people would just sort of say, well, they're Italian, they're this. And it's frustrating. The reality is, I don't know if anybody was, in the mob, but I know, and I can speak for, I won't say a name, but a close friend who's a United States Senator, and his cousin who was a judge, federal judge, who both said to me, man, if our grandparents did bootleg, what the hell would we have done? Wouldn't have gone to college. I mean, the truth is, you were literally kept from cash, right? Like, literally at times in the mining community, you couldn't get cash. You got paid in script money that you had to then use at the company's store. So, if you're going to tilt the table against people and they decide to tilt it back on it, good on you, good on them. I'm not condoning that, but I'm just sick of, you weren't with me the other day. I was talking to somebody, it was Saturday night, we were at an event in Pittsburgh about the movie. It was a kind of a private thing we had to go do. And, it's really funny, and this guy said something to me, and I said that to one of my friends from England, which is, I don't want to be lectured by you people. We gave you central heating 2,000 years ago, and you still can't figure out how it works. Seriously, I mean, they can't. So, we're a complex culture, and I just don't want to be reduced to a stereotype. Although I probably am, but that's as a movie director.
That's the humor with it.
Yeah.
You have to find this within. So obviously food is identity of Italian Americans as displayed in your film, and of course the pepperoni roll. It's making a little cameo there, which I always used to refer to as like the Italian American version of the Cornish pasty, joking about, they take in the steel mills. Little did I know that Fairmont, West Virginia is the home of the pepperoni roll. I don't know if anyone knew that. That just blew my mind a little bit.
We kind of refer to it as crack down there because you just can't have one.
So I guess, can you mention what that means to your, identity as Italian American from West Virginia, and how wrapped up like that pepperoni roll?
Well, I really hated when I had to go stay at other kids' house if they weren't Italian because the food was going to suck. And it always sucked. Don't lie if you're not. Come on, if you're Italian, you had to go to somebody's house. You're like, God. But one of the things, what I don't think I understood, it was my great grandmother that I actually sort of just fell in love with. I was just crazy about her. And in fact, when I cast Lynn, they kept bringing out these women to be naughty. And God, this is going to sound inappropriate, but I would be like, she's not hot enough. She's not beautiful enough. My grandmother was 90, and I thought she was stunning. I went in the house one time, and she had her hair down. I didn't know that she had long hair, because it was always back in this thing. Her hair went to here. And I was like, you're a babe. She's like, hey, shut up. Get in. And, but she was. And, but the way that I became captivated with her was food. Because I've always, even when I was, this is so long-winded, man, I'm going to screw this up, and I'm going to try. I blew it the other night in a speech. To understand me, my dad would do some carpentry, like little projects around the house. I was fascinated that he could take raw materials and make something. And I wanted to do that. And I wanted a toolbox. So I think when I was 5, for Christmas or birthday, I got a toolbox. And everything in it was fake. Like a little light hammer, saw couldn't cut anything. And I was pissed. I was like, I don't want this. This isn't real. This is an imitation. I didn't say imitation. I probably didn't know the word yet. But I was so offended because I wanted something I could genuinely create with. And when I started watching her, like she would take flour, she would do this, drop an egg, or do whatever, or go out into her yard, and grow, figs, pears, tomatoes, everything. And she could make something out of nothing, and it was magical. And even though we didn't even have chains yet, I hate to tell you, I don't think we had a McDonald's in Fairmont until like 77. So I didn't really go to chains. Although I will say this, I never saw a round pizza in person until I was 7 years old at a Pizza Hut in Roanoke, Virginia. All our pizzas were like, I was like, is that really a thing? But like, I would watch her do these things, and I just thought it was magical. And it was also, what's funny? My dad's family, the Jamestown bunch, all the pioneers, the Daniel Boone types, and they were. But it was my Italian family that taught me to hunt, fish, and forage. Right? They had time for me. Yeah, and adaptability. And I was just amazed at how they could just adapt and improvise. And, I think sometimes, honestly, not to trash the Northern Italians, they're worse about it, but we all really are, especially when we get a little bit of money. We start trying to have these litmus tests for everything that I honestly think our great-grandparents wouldn't even recognize. We fuss about what 7 dishes to serve on Christmas Eve. In my village, a little anchovy fritti, man, and that was like, holy cow, we are living tonight. Yeah. So this kind of precious rigidness, I can't stand. These people were awesome.
I feel like that kind of almost answers my second question. I guess...
We're like this, man.
I know, we've been like this. Just hit the ground running. I guess I'll just jump kind of later into the question, because, everybody has their own thing, whether it's 7, or everybody, even within the 7, it's not the exact same from region to region, family to family. Some people do like less than, and then some people just do just pasta, like no meat until midnight. So I guess you have the graphic novel, a film, and the festival, which you should definitely chat about, which is coming up in a day or two. It's all, which I think all of it really enshrines and mythologizes to some extent, and at the same time validates the ritual. I don't know, how do you untangle that?
Well, I think as a creative person, or as a thinking person, I think your relationship to things is always in flux and it changes. And if it's not, then you're just that one boring kid who can only watch one set of horror movies or buy one set of comic books, and they're afraid of anything resembling change. And what I've discovered through the course of this was, initially, we wanted to preserve recipes. I was so naive when I started this. I thought what we did, once I figured out everybody did it, I thought they all did the same thing. I didn't understand till I got into it for a minute that these recipes, bottom line is, it doesn't matter. What really matters is doing things together. That's the most authentic thing we can do. And not just, kill ourselves on these impossibly perfect, curated Martha Stewart Christmas. I like Martha Stewart. I don't think it's Martha. My friend dated her. Good for her. But do you know what I mean? Like, you're pursuing some sort of an image. And when I realized that, that was part of the thing that I really wanted it to be about, when we actually generated memories and did things together, that's what really meant something. And that when we do a shared experience, whether it's me and my wife foraging for ramps or making apple cider, or my buddies and I going fishing and cooking trout, whatever that thing is that we do together is better than any kind of prepackaged corporate thing that we're going to get at the mall, or we don't have malls anymore, but you know what I mean, from Amazon. It's just to genuinely have a memory that we built together. And I think that's actually the most important thing out of all of this, is to do things together.
Did I answer that question?
Yeah, I thought it was a really answer, actually. I'm gonna jump to my 7th question.
I'm always looking at my wife going, did I say something wrong?
I know the feeling. I'm gonna jump to the 7th question, which is actually my 6th, so you're number 7, so you better be ready. So if you could invite anybody, alive or deceased, to the Feast of 7 Fishes, Who would it be and why?
I got an idea, but
I'll get too upset. My great-grandmother.
How do you follow that, Gabe? You got a question?
No, it punches you sometimes when you think about it. You're like,
Yeah.
I get to do all this.
Along those same veins, we got really good memories growing up. Generations that are no longer here. We're doing our best as parents as we can, taking what we were given as kids and young adults, pass that on. And it's interesting to incorporate your point where you said, when our grandparents and great-grandparents came here, they tried so hard to assimilate into the American culture. My grandma wasn't allowed to speak Italian at home.
Yeah.
She could only speak English, but her parents didn't speak English. So like, how the hell do you manage that? So with each passing generation, we're losing a little bit of where we came from, what we're gaining, other things that we don't even know where we're going, but there's new experiences. So I guess my question, number 7, is what advice would you have for people of my generation and our next generation in preserving our culture while embracing the future?
Can I just start out by stipulating that I'm a hypocrite? Get rid of this for a minute. Even though I liked it all day today, because as pitiful it is, I have a following, and I make sure that every microbrew I go to or killer Italian restaurant like Prima, I'm going to promote it because it works. But man, don't you ever feel like sometimes we're so busy trying to record what we're doing that we don't do it? You know? Like, there are like 6 pictures of me before I'm 12 years old. And each one of them is awesome in its own way. I mean, I was an ugly little kid, but they're awesome. And there are, tens of thousands probably of pictures of my children. And who cares? I think time spent together is, like today's been fantastic. I mean, I owe Youngstown. No, seriously. When I started this project, I had sold a horror film at Sony. And the executive took me out to eat, ironically, at a sushi bar in Venice Beach, California. And I like to have a good time. I'm going to have a really good time tonight when we get back to the hotel. That's a killer bar. I don't care. That's who I am. We have fun. I want to have fun, man. I don't know how many days I got left. And we went out, and he said, what do you want to do next? And this had been in my mind. There were no Christmas movies, per se. Like, there was like It's a Wonderful Life. Like, nobody was doing the Hallmark, IV drip of schmaltz every day. I just produced one of those, so yeah, I'm a hypocrite, I told you. Not for Hallmark, but it's a piece of crap for another network. But, and I told him what I wanted to do. And as he got drunk enough, he started to go, you know what, man, this is a great idea. And I called my manager on the way back to the hotel, and he said, are you an idiot? No one wants to see a movie about your idiot Italian relatives cooking fish on Christmas Eve. He's no longer my manager. But I went ahead and I did it because I was doing comic books, and I went ahead and I did a comic strip. And I told my wife, and she's like, oh my God, I'm so glad you're going to do this. You're going to do something not horror, at least horrible things that you think about. This is going to be romantic. It's going to be wonderful. Who's publishing it? And I said, I'm going to put it on the internet and give it away for free. And she goes, what are you, an idiot? And I was like, no, man, it's like drug dealers. First taste is for free, and I'll get them hooked. And it worked. It only took like 17 years to actually get it all the way to happen. But no one wanted to do the book. The web strip, back then there were web comics that people were interested in. They took off. I had like 50,000 readers a month. And so no one would publish the book. So I started a company. And we published the book. And ultimately it was nominated for the Eisner, which is, I'm not exaggerating. It's like I actually got the equivalent of the Oscar for Best Picture for comic books. The nomination, I didn't win. But no one would take the book, like Barnes & Noble. Look, I respect everybody, and I love people, and I want everybody just to be happy. Well, you're like, man, I'm doing this kind of cool thing about Italians cooking fish, and like, now we're not going to take it. But the impulse buy it, the thing is My Two Mommies Christmas. I'm like, lesbians are more popular than Italians? And by the way, it's a good book, My Two Mommies Christmas. It's not me. I'm just like, really? I couldn't get any traction. So we hired a publicist, and the first place she said, have you ever been to Youngstown? Why now? But she said, you know, there's a lot of Italians out there. I was like, well, and I said, well, what bookstore? She goes, well, the bookstore said no. But Jimmy's Italian Market said yes. I was like, all right, at this point, I'm like desperate because no one wants my book. And I did an early morning TV show here, and then I did a radio show, and those guys were awesome. I don't remember their names because I can't remember anything, especially since COVID. Like, seriously, I'm going to forget how to get downstairs again. And but they brought in fish at 7 o'clock in the morning. I think we had a little bit of wine, and my brother's like, I don't know if this is a good idea. But when they started talking about it, the phone lines lit up by people from Youngstown. And there were a couple people that actually knew the comic strip online. So we were feeling pretty good about it. And we got to Jimmy's, I think it was 11 in the morning, noon. And we sold 150 books in like 90 minutes. Like sold out. We still had books. I forget how it went. But it was crazy. You know, and Frank, you know, they were like, yeah, we'll take more books. And it was awesome because then we went to Erie and we went on radio and TV and stuff. And we went to Barnes & Noble. Were actually going to let us come in and sell for 10% off. Because they would take 10% of the cover as opposed to carrying the book. They go, we're never carrying this book. And the manager, she felt sorry for me. And she said, I feel bad for you boys that you came all the way up here. And I was thinking, I feel bad you're calling me a boy and I got 10 years on you. But she said, you're not going to sell any books. But I had been on the radio that morning and on TV, and I was like, yeah, I am. And I sat down. She came back an hour later, and she goes, you sold 60 books. I was like, yeah, Italians can read. But this has been the story, the whole journey of this thing was people telling me that no one wanted to watch this. No one wanted to read about it. No one cares about my stupid Italian, blah, 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 blah. Nobody wants to see a Christmas movie where they cuss and talk about weed. Yes, they do. Because they live it. So. Yes, sir.
Thank you for my question. Recently I saw Fairmont, right, which is Steven Spielberg.
Oh, yes.
Autobiographical story. And I saw a lot of similarities, right? Especially one of them is that, like, us versus them, usually the great other, usually like the lost crowd, right there with the Jewish background, with the Italian background. So when we talk about identity, can you speak on that? Is it destructive? Is it protective towards that group? What's your goal? Because I see a lot. Greeks, Slovaks, like any diaspora group has this, well, we do it differently. And usually it's, well, we do it better. They don't know the things we know.
Man, that is like such a big, you know, that's a wormhole to go down. Identity is such a big deal. Identity, I teach film some. And I teach a unit on when I can, and there's a certain class I'll do about identity in film. You know, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde's an identity picture, obviously. But, you know, if I talk to you about a baby whose world is about to die, everyone's going to get wiped out, and his parents put a piece of fabric with him in a vessel and send him off, and he's raised by a whole other civilization and becomes like a godlike superhero. You think I'm talking about Superman, I'm talking about Moses. Identity is important to us. And I think maybe there was a strength in numbers sort of a thing, but also I think we resent being reduced to something. And we don't mind necessarily internally being reduced, although Tony certainly does. He needs to be something else. But when you had, I didn't say manja cake, honey, so don't start. She's always like, you gotta stop calling people cake eaters. But when they would reduce us, and as a kid, yeah, I was called Dago and Wop. Guinea. Thank you. Of course, we called them, as I said, cake eaters and snuffies. You really got to be from West Virginia to know what snuffy is. So, you know, I think it was just knowing where to fit in. And I don't want to go way off on this, but like I'm really fascinated to give you some real insight into this. And you guys' eyes are going to glaze over. But like, you know, Siegel and Schuster, who created Superman, two Jewish kids living in Cleveland. Superman was born in Cleveland, cultural descendant of the Golem. But there's a wonderful novel called The Adventures of Cavalier Clay, and I don't think there's any better book that really talks about that sort of, you know, immigrant evolution. I mean, it's not like they got here and everybody threw their arms around them and said, you're home. You know, they said, I can't pronounce Oliver, that's your name now. I mean, that's, so, you know, I think that, what else did you have at that point? But to try to hang on to. But some of it I don't think was even conscious. It was just like, those ramps look like garlic, let's try that. You know, and that's what they did. I think it's probably a terrible answer, I'm sorry.
Well, that's why I wanted to sort of go back to your question earlier, and I think that foodways are one thing that, as we went through culturally Americanization programs and things like that, where you couldn't speak your language in the community and all that, but you could show your food. And so foodways, to me, that's sort of my emphasis with the food phenomenon. That's what I study. It's the most identifiable thing that we can still connect to our heritage. And so I would say, when you say, how do we keep that? One, you interview people, you write down recipes, you cook with people, you videotape it, and you just be in those moments. But food is what doesn't die or change, especially amongst American Italians, because we, we're both mixed. We're, neither full-blooded Italian. We married. My English ways come in, my German ways come in. But on Christmas Eve, there's no denying those American Italian food ways, and we hold those dear to us, and that is what preserves our heritage, I think, more than anything that's so easy. Because no one's bagging on you for cooking what your comfort food and what you love is. But, if I probably went out at my funeral and tired of our great grandparents would wear, they'd be like, it's a little too much.
Or the Calabrian curls, right? Like I have pictures like my great-great-grandmother, those curls. Do you guys know those?
If you talk to the oldest people in your family and you write down recipes and you collect them, that keeps it one within everything, especially as we assimilate even more. We're becoming even more and more of a melting pot, I think, culturally. And that's going to be more and more important. And, this is our 16th year of running the cooking school.
Yeah, why don't you go your story than me at this?
But this is our 16th year, so what is, 16, we've done 1 year because of COVID virtually.
We've collected over 130 recipes, I think, from different families that do things.
But the rule is always there has to be 3 or 4 traditional. You have to have a bacala recipe. I mean, not many people can text their kid today and say, "Did you start soaking the bacala?" And they know what they're supposed to do. Well, You know, my kid does, because I had one chef who didn't buy enough. But so it's things like that, I think, that are important. And cookie tables. You know, I mean, I think I was the first West Virginia girl I knew, because I was raised half the year southwestern Pennsylvania and half the year in West Virginia. But my Italian family I was raised with was southwestern Pennsylvania. I wanted a damn cookie table at my wedding, and I had one, and now it's a thing. You know, it's everywhere, and it's just those types of things, I think, are what really keep things going and preserve that, because I think we just all are changing so much with technology, especially.
Yes, sir.
Hey, bud, I'm a big time cake eater for all of you who make them.
Well, I was trying to get
But I got two quick little questions. One, were you ugly enough to inspire your horror movies when you were a kid? And then the other one was, where did you get all the casting for those characters? Because I'm a huge fan. I've seen this movie like 20 times.
Thank you.
Wow.
Wait, so the first question I didn't quite get. The first question.
When I was a kid, I was wondering, did that inspire horror films?
Part of it did. No, part of it did, because when I would, and I've talked to people about this. I think that they're part of the reason that some of the classic horror films and things worked for people was that they seemed familiar. Like, I can remember being a kid, and there would be Italian movies on TV with subtitles or whatever, and it didn't seem foreign to me. And when I got to film school, and I would see things by, De Sica or Rossellini or even Fellini, it didn't seem that foreign to me. So it was accessible. So I think there was an accessibility, the imagery and stuff. Yeah, I think there was something to go with that. Okay, so where did I get, let me ask you this. So the second book. Okay, this cast makes no sense on paper. I was told on the way in, you will never get any big names. You'll never get, and now, like, my cast, and plus 4 of them have so blown up since I shot that people are like, how did you know? I'm like, man, I found Ryan Gosling. I just thought he was a nice kid. I don't know. I would take him his first movie. But in this instance, my casting director would call me from LA, because I didn't even have time to go to LA, because I was actually shooting something else in Pittsburgh. And our son was very little at the time. Like, it was a very stressful time. And I would get these phone calls, and they would go, the guy from X-Men says he's doing it, going to play Juke. And I was like, well, I haven't said he can do it yet. They go, no, he's not going to take no for an answer. He's already said, yeah, he's doing it. And I had these moments. I never thought the kids would be anybody. I never dreamt. I mean, I'm not even kidding. And Joey Pants, he was a lunatic, but I'd love to work with him again. But Joey turned the movie down. And I was on set shooting something, and the phone rang. He goes, Roberto, this is Joey Pants. I'm like, okay, how's it going? He goes, I'm not going to do your movie, but I want to talk to you. And we spent 45 minutes talking about how to cook calamari. And then he goes, all right, I'm going to do it. Well, then when he did it, then Victor said, well, I'll do it. Richard said, well, I'll do it. And then it just, it made no sense. I wish I could tell. And then the secondary roles are like people I grew up with. And my daughter, I'm very comfortable directing non-actors. And so I was just like, Porter, his name's Porter. And yeah, that's just who he is. And he is the whitest person I know, I have to say. This guy is the whitest guy you ever meet. Yes, sir, over here.
On your movie, that you talked about the Youngstown connection, I was born in Fire, lived here till I was 7 years old. My grandmother took our 7th kid until I was 14, and she passed away, and my mom took her. 22 years ago, my mom passed away. After the grieving started settling down, she passed away in April. Come around September, my kids come to me and they said, what are we going to do on Christmas Eve? And it's still continuing. I'm 72 years old. I've had 72 Christmas Eve dinners.
Yeah. I mean, what would you rather be doing?
I would rather be doing anything.
No, but it's
When I
all.
was a kid, we'd be in the bar drinking, and it was Christmas Eve, and I said, what are you guys gonna do on Christmas Eve? Well, I don't know. What are you gonna do? I said, I'm going home. I'm gonna be with my family.
Yeah, my dad had to pull me out of a beer joint Christmas Eve 1983. I wish I'd have gone over to my grandmother sooner and just taken notes or recorded her. I feel like a moron. I thought she was going to live forever. I didn't know anybody died at that point, you know. Like 22 years old, I didn't know.
I forgot to say no to that. I had a son that's in the Army. The only Christmas Eve dinners that he's missed were twice when he was in Korea and twice when he was in Afghanistan. No matter where he was with his children, he's got 4 boys, and no matter where he was with his children, he made it back to my house on Christmas Eve.
Thank you for your service.
Well, that's the one thing I say to my daughter, I'm like, listen, when you get married and have kids, you can have Easter, you can have Christmas Day, but you're not getting Christmas Eve. Other things, so just whoever you marry, whether he's Italian or not, make sure he has that going in. That's part of the marriage. I get Christmas Eve.
If there's any more questions, we got some last minute questions we can ask. Scott?
You know, I was fortunate. I loved the fish. I don't know why. I loved it. I wouldn't eat the oysters when I was little. But I was so stupid. I mean, there's so many things I'm stupid about. But I didn't even understand because I was like, I'm not having anchovies. I won't eat anchovies. And when I finally had anchovies on pizza, I was like 40. And I said to my mom, we've been having anchovies on pizza. She goes, yeah, but if we told you kids, you would freak out. So just don't say anything. How do you think your grandmother salted the pizza? Yes, sir. You can Amazon. I urge people, and I don't get another dime out of it, so it's not that. I wish people would buy the Blu-rays, and the reason is there's a behind the scenes, there's photographs, there's commentary, there's a short film. You get a richer experience, but you can go home tonight, you can watch it on Amazon, you can watch it on Tubi. The main thing is I just want you to watch it. It's completely sold out. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's gone. But if you go online, you go on Amazon, you'll find it.
What's the event coming up?
The Feast of the Seven Fishes Festival is the second Friday and Saturday in Fairmont, West Virginia every year. And oh yeah, and it's a 1 block. There's this. It's just a big street. Honestly, it's like 5,000 of my closest friends party, and I can't even. We get people. Yeah, it's about a 2-hour and 25-minute drive. It's for the mural. My town did a mural for the movie. It's 40 feet long. It's Saturday is the street fair. Friday night we have the festival Cucina Cooking School. It sells out so quickly. It's already sold out. But the Saturday's a lot of polkas. I thought polkas were Christmas carols.
My wife tried to get Youngstown, but I'm from Cleveland. Have you connected with Cleveland Italians in Little Italy?
You know, I did one of my earliest book signings. I did there, but 3 of my producers are from Cleveland, and we did when it was in theaters. We were in Cleveland, the theaters, and at a big theater. I forget where we were. I'm terrible. I can't remember. But yeah, but no, Cleveland, people in Cleveland love. I get plenty of people cry and tell me how much they like the movie in Cleveland. So
Thank you.
thank you all very much.
Thank you all very much. Thank you, Robert and Gina.